I'm Robert Hoffman. I'm the Shelter Program Manager at Simpson Housing Services, and I'd like to welcome you all to this memorial service. I'd like to thank Plymouth Church for giving us the space to gather tonight, to thank those of you who marched with us, and those of you who are joining us for the service, and those of you who are here in spirit but couldn't be here in body. Tonight we're gathering to lift up the names of folks in our community that have passed, to lift up their memories, to make sure that they get a dignified service of remembrance, and that our memories of them endure. We collected 266 names tonight. I know that that's just a fraction of the folks in our community that have been lost this year, and so I'd like to take a moment also just to remember those whose names didn't make their way to us all across the state, folks from Bemidji down to Rochester to right here in the cities. So I'd like to now welcome Reverend Beth Hoffman Faith up to the podium.
Good evening. As we begin our time of worship together, I invite you to join me in a responsive reading that's found on the back page of your bulletin. We Carry Their Names by Karina Alexson. In solidarity with all who sleep outside, who sleep in shelters, to show they are us and we are them, we carry their names. To remember, to mourn, to celebrate, to offer our support, to ensure that no life, no death, no passing from here to the beyond is unseen or unacknowledged. We gather together. We speak the names of those who are no longer with us, names of people we knew, names of strangers, names of relatives, names of ones whose names are not known. We speak their names. We share memories of struggles, tears, battles lost, memories that haunt us and fuel our work. We share memories of good times, laughter, successes, memories that heal and keep us warm. We remember together. Buoyed by embracing loss and sharing comfort, we leave with full hearts until we gather again. We carry their names. It's now an honor to invite lead minister of Plymouth Congregational Church, Dr. Dwayne Davis, to the pulpit.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you for being witnesses tonight. We at Plymouth Church are so honored to observe with you the 39th Annual Homeless Memorial. As I've said to many people who immediately said to me, thank you, I immediately told them there's no need for thanks. This memorial service has become a part of all of our planning and observing during the season of Advent. It is our witness and our ministry to join in this memorial service with you. I also want to point out that when I saw the names on those signs, and when you come through that door, you couldn't see it from our vantage point as we welcomed you. But I was humbled, and it occurred to me that your service tonight is something that we have been talking about at Plymouth, especially today, what it means to be witness. And so I want to say it again, even though some of you may have heard me say it as you were walking through the door. I want to say it officially. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being witnesses. Thank you for being advocates. Thank you for keeping their memories alive. Thank you for calling their names. Thank you for shouting it to the world that they mattered, we love them, and we call their names. So I thank you for doing it. Thank you for your service. And so, as I welcome you, I also want to point out to you, you may not have heard it, it may be rare these days, but one of the central principles of the Christian tradition is in the form of a question: who is my neighbor? Unfortunately, there are far too many people who call and claim that name that refuse to see those without homes, those who walk our streets, those who are struggling, refuse to see them as our neighbors. And so tonight, it is our commitment as we host this service to not only remember the question, who is our neighbor, but to act on it, to do everything that we can possibly do to make sure that we can put ourselves out of business in this kind of memorial service. And so, who is our neighbor? All of those who struggle for safe shelter. Who is our neighbor? All of those who cry out for help. Who is our neighbor? All of the ones who are sometimes nameless to us, but who are indeed the beloved of God. Welcome. And now I want to introduce our speaker, Beth Holger. And you have Beth's information on the back of the bulletin. But Beth, I'm going to tell you something. There is the beauty of Google. Someone can hand you a biography, but as long as you put that name in the search engine, Beth, we get to see a lot of things about you. And one thing that really struck me when I did that was several articles and talking to Beth about what they do, what the Link does. And by the way, the Link's offices are not too far from where my family lives. And we walk by there during the summer all the time. There's also a wine shop over there too, so sometimes we stop by there. But we walk by the Link, and there is often some people who are sitting on the picnic table that sits in the yard. And we wave to people and as we walk by. But it is such a pleasure to hear from you who's been doing the work. When I did that Google search, the one thing that struck me, and I think is so important for us to know, and Beth will probably talk a lot about this, but it's not only that they work with youth and adults and young families experiencing homelessness and working with those who have been trafficked, those who are in juvenile justice and in foster care systems, but they not only work with all of those who are struggling in those situations, but what struck me was especially that all of those people's voices are centered in the leadership and in the operations. The Link and Beth are not just simply lording over or doing all of the work, but the voices of the people who are experiencing those things are part of the operational leadership. They are part of the advocacy. They get to tell their stories, and they are a part of the work. And I think that is a powerful, powerful, wonderful way to work with people who are experiencing homelessness, and especially for our youth, that their voices get to be centered in the work that is being done in their lives. And so I am so grateful for the link. I am so grateful for Beth. I hope she'll tell us all about it, but I just wanted to let her know that just going and finding that out, your witness is a powerful witness, and it is just what we need to hear tonight in this work. So please join me in welcoming with a hearty applause our speaker, Beth. There we go.
I was not expecting to be Google searched for this role, and I wasn't expecting such a lengthy and very kind introduction, so thank you so much. When Steve Horsfield called me to ask if I would be the speaker for tonight's memorial service, the first feeling I had was an immense sense of honor. I have been attending this memorial for over 20 years, since I was a very baby youth worker. I started young. But then I had a second feeling, which was this, I hung up the phone with him, had this great conversation, and then I got so sad because we should not have to be still holding memorial services for people who have died while or recently experiencing homelessness. Then my mind went directly to all of the young people that I know who have lost their lives while experiencing homelessness or after, and the tears just started coming. Some of you may be thinking, hey, that all the people out there who die while experiencing homelessness are adults, and that is just simply not the reality. We are losing way too many adults, absolutely, but we're also losing our youth. We lose youth most often these days to things like gun violence, overdoses, but also sometimes due to illnesses that haven't been treated well, suicide because of all the trauma. We also lose many adults, unfortunately, for the same reasons. All of these reasons that we see people losing their lives for, I strongly believe could have been prevented had they not been through the traumas that they'd been through in their lives, including the experience of homelessness. We see it every day and night and every weekend holiday. Youth and adults who are experiencing homelessness, who are facing all kinds of horrible things that those of us that have stable housing don't even have to think about. Just to name a few of them, where your next meal will come from, where you're gonna sleep tonight, will you be safe or will you be targeted for a sexual assault or a physical assault? Will you have your few belongings or ID stolen from you? Will you not be able to go into a doctor if you're in immense pain or really sick? And the list could go on. I also want to take this opportunity to honor every single person who's lost their life this past year while experiencing homelessness, and also all the young people who I have had the honor to know who have lost their life while experiencing homelessness this past year. One in particular that I really want to lift up is Tay Powell. Tay grew up in a way that no one should have to experience. He experienced a lot of abuse at the hands of people that were supposed to love him and take care of him and be his family. Then was put into the foster care system, and we oftentimes know how well that system works. I won't get on that. And from there ended up experiencing homelessness. Ended up in one of our housing programs at the Link, thankfully. And then after a lot of hard work on Tay's part, and a lot of ups and downs, and I mean lots, Tay made it out of homelessness. If you didn't know what Tay had been through, then you might not even realize it though, because Tay had such a huge heart. Tay's physical size was very small, but he made up for it with personality. Tay was always making us laugh, was extremely caring and loyal to those he considered to be family or friends, and was always talking about how the Link and his amazing guardian ad litem were his real family. Tay was passionate about other young people who went through the same kind of things he did. And the other thing about Tay is he could get really fired up sometimes. And I could tell you many stories about myself or other Link youth or staff members who worked through and were with Tay through many, many blow-ups. And oftentimes these would happen in very public places or in the middle of the night. But Tay always came down from these moments too, and then we always had great stories to laugh about with him later. Tay was also one of our youth leaders and staff at the Link. He was on one of our youth advisory committees and helped to open up our Project Live Out Loud housing program, which is the first culturally specific rapid rehousing program for LGBTQ youth experiencing homelessness in our country. He wanted to create a place where other LGBTQ youth could be safe, be themselves, and be loved. Thanks to Tay and the other young people who helped to create this program, our Project Live Out Loud program now has 30 units of housing for LGBTQ homeless youth and their own building. In July, though, I got the kind of news you never want to get. Tay's guardian ad litem, Denise, who I knew pretty well from all of the work with Tay and other young people and other reasons, called me and said that she had gotten a call from the coroner's office and that Tay had been shot and killed the night before, July 22nd of this year. Tay and his girlfriend, Heaven, were both shot by a young man who had gotten into their apartment entrance through a broken lock. Thankfully, Heaven survived, and I want to say to you, Heaven, that don't ever feel bad for surviving. We're so thankful that you did. Tay is too. But to our great sadness, Tay did not. I know that Tay died how he lived, which was looking out for those that he loved. When Heaven asked me after Tay was killed, do you think Tay ran out of the building to protect me? I said yes, without a doubt, because that's who Tay was. Tay ran out of the building to force the shooter to follow him outside and away from you. He wanted to protect you and your sons because that's the kind of person that Tay is. I will miss Tay so much. I already do. But I'm so grateful for all that he gave to me, other young people, and everyone that knew him and this community, and now the Project Live Out Loud program that he helped co-found. And he was proud to call himself a co-founder. So how can we prevent these untimely losses, unnecessary losses of amazing gifts to this world? I am a firm believer that we can reduce and end homelessness. Some people think I'm crazy, but it is true. We can do it. Lord knows we have enough data being collected by all of us and all of the amazing people we have, amazing people doing street outreach, working shelter shifts, working in housing, and most importantly, we have amazing people that have lived, that are currently experiencing homelessness or who have. They're all working together in this fight to end homelessness. All we need to do is now direct the resources in the right way. We've made some huge progress over the years due to lots of work by many incredible and ongoing advocacy. Our state made historic increases to fight homelessness this past year to help youth, adults, families, and it's amazing. I only have 5-6 minutes, but if I listed all of them, it would take forever. But I have to give a special shout out to the Homeless Youth Act, working on that for over 20 years. It's a true testament to never giving up. We could triple that. Thank you to the young people leading that movement. But we have way more to do, and we will. We can reduce and end youth homelessness and all of homelessness in our state. It is solvable, and it starts by all of us simply looking into our hearts and making a choice every day to live with love, kindness, and forgiveness, to live from a place of genuinely caring about those around you, valuing all human life, and not judging other people, because the truth is you don't know what they've been through or what they're currently going through. We all need to make informed voting choices and investments on where we spend our time and our money. And most importantly, we also need to raise our children this way. And then we all need to join the movement to end homelessness if you haven't already. And please reach out to the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless, the Link, Simpson, any of these great providers, because we need all of you in this movement. And I'll end with this. Rest in power. Tay and everybody else that we're lighting candles for tonight. We thank you so much what you've given this world, and you're never forgotten.
Alexander Stephen Alex Moore, Stephen Joseph Kellogg, Chaz James Culbertson, Jason Martin Bowman, Derek Luke Harding Reyes Sr., Samuel Allen McGill, Bilay Mohammed Ahmed, Jayla Lynn Pugh, Daniel Augustine Cloud,
Michael Remnick Witten, Darnell Theodore Richardson, Wallace Glenn Wally Sace Jr., Jacob Leandrew Ellison, Kelvin Maurice Larkins, Ishqa Mohammed Ishi Warsami, Harry Bell Cotto, aka Mike Hernandez, Julie Ann Garcia, Kendrick Lamont Starr, are you next? Christian Ikavari Vega,
Austin Gregory Hero Jones, Alexis Ray Rodriguez, Jada Marie Schwingle, Kate Omani Wynn Frazier, David Brown Otter, Scott Alexander Brandmeier, Christian James C.B. Hickman, youth age 16, Precious Lynn Strong, Christopher James Chandler, Amanda Irene Muchko,
Abdullahi Mohammed Noor, Darren Deshaun Kennedy Face, J.D. Helton Judy Jr., Bama, Kashera Unique Miko Todd, Ralph Edward Murphy, Peter John Pete Gangler III, Alexandro Victor Martinez Luman, Stephanie Lorraine Nieves, Devontae Amar Strother, Malia Verna May Barron,
Jason Wesley Henderson, Lynn Renee Tiger, Ruth Arlene Wind, Khalid Amir Al-Rahman, Jamie Ann Swanson, Alonzo Anton Wright, Kevin Lawrence, Reginald Eugene Reggie Snelling, Caleb Uriah Moses Kanowski, Nathan John Valinsky,
Thomas Michael Powell, Dana Campa, Anna Christine Everett, Richard Curtis Edlund, Clotel Marie Angel Wilkins, Clarice Levon Fiscari, Carl Scott Blade, Michelle Lee Troxel, Kendall Joseph Porter, Denzel Akeem Crawford,
Roy Ann Teresa Dunning, Derek Paul Pavelka, Dono Gary Kuncher, Bradford Peter Meisler, Terrence Tyree Arnold, Travis Eugene Maverick Gilliland, Jackson Ray Love Rudnick, Vanessa Denise Hodges, Nicole Francis LeBlanc, Brookie Zephyr Flying Hawk,
Valerie Rebecca Marshall Johnson, Marvin Bruce Peterson, Bruce Henry Faust, Bradley James Sam, Brandon Demario Shaw, Jeremy Ed Cadwell Jr., Alfred Roy Gouge, Dustin Thunder Hilgren, Veronica Ann Hero, Stephen Doyle Cross,
Anton Marshall Sims, Michael Lee Fox, Michelle Shelley Mitchell, Jared Dwayne Scott, Eugene Samuel Olson Jr., James Edward Anderson, John Bernard Feather Jr., Richard Anthony Hayden, Desiree Lachey Matthews, Thomas Ray Lewis,
Kayla Nadine Gustafson, Tracy Latisa Clinton, Curtis Leroy Johnson, Christopher Allen Gus Matheson, Lotus Mojica Scroggins, Miguel Ani Rivera Tacuba, Austin Lee Reich, Bonnie Lisa Schultz. Sorry to page this. Unknown person, Minneapolis. Cherney Yvette Lucius Young.
Albert James Sam Dunkley, Tommy Jacob Chevy McGovern, Unknown Man, Rochester, Shannon Marie Doherty, Ramon Muya Anzaldo, Wallace James Wally Kingbird III, Wayne Allen Drake, Norman Delano Green Jr., Daniel James Dan Davey, Raymond Dickey Torres Ray D. Leon,
Tamaje Keyone Short, Amanda Jean Mandy Woldmo, John Johnson, Noah Andrew Whitefeather, Unknown person, St. Paul, Reed Ellis Richards, Clifford Lynn Jack Williams, Savannah Williams, Matthew C. Morrison, Melaine Ray Pinky Folson,
Marlon Eugene Moore, Larry Philip Olson, Matthew Lee Freeman, Deborah Debbie Connor, Anthony John Tone Carlson, Tamara Elizabeth Liz Pitney Barton, Douglas Lee Doug Bennett, Jeffrey Scott Scholander, Tanya Lynn Jack, Christopher Lee Chris Ekman,
Douglas Calvin Johnson, Angela Renee Angel May, Mary Ann Terrell, Dylan Daniel Pickle Hunt, James John Jim Lorenzo, Keith Ellen Emerson, John Ross Wentz, Nicole Faye Ronald, Teresa Ann Bergen, Hollis Kimberly Holly Fransky,
Frederick Michael Anderson, Carrie Marie Martin, Andrew Francis LaCourcier, Munea Michelle Michelle Loud. Jennifer Marie Jen Magnuson. Lloyd Frederick Cato Gibson. Eric Tilden Trunk. Laura Marie Lola Huell. Jillian K. Rojas. Tyrone Lee Ty Johnson.
Michael Ray Mike Scarlett. John Richard Ron. Gregory Allen Sibbett. Larissa Deanne Fiscari Monroe. Zachary James Zach Sjogren. Teresa Ann Rosendahl. Careless Don Payne. Jeriad Michael Uli Fifi. Mark Anthony Todd. Andy Devon Carter.
Dallas Stephen Randall. Rock Chemo Kruger. Hassan Aiden Omar. Vishawn Yamain Sean Martis. Orlando Villarreal Andrade. Lori Lee Thompson. Cynthia Lorraine Hare. Byron Dean Sayers. Jane Marie Fairbanks. Amani Chantel Banks.
Thomas Paul Tommy Konzak. Miranda K. Day Roberts. Robin Lynn Martin. Solomon Fasil Maku. Robin Walton Marsh. Eric Dean Smith. Azelle Holden. Bryant Lamont Wheeler. Melinda Sue Baraboo. Timothy Joseph or Tim Plant.
Calvin Charles Cali Cal Moose Sr. David Lee Dalton. Alan Ross Shepard. Tyler Allen Jorgensen. David James Dave Powell. Julie Dawn Becker. Stephen James Fullerton. Scott Cole. Lisa Marie Moody. Tanya Ariel Tay Powell.
Ernest Timms. Isaiah Lamar Deegan. Megan Lynn Fleischer. Timothy Lee Stangl. Christopher Lee King Gilmer. Kevin Bernard Thompson. Craig Lamont Bethea. Dustin Paul Eggert. Shannon Mary Nene Smallwood. Kim Laurie Buckanaga Crowd.
Roy Gordon Schmidt. Dale Preston Starnes. Daniel Travis Dandan. Raincloud Robertson. Vanetta Charmaine Miss V. Bennett. Michael Calvin Shaw. Ventrez Lamont Johnson. Desmond Xavier Rogers. Donnie Gary Straub Jr. Casey Patrick Cody. Aaron Michael Sexton.
Mario J. Severini. Roger Von Zemke. Tyrone Nicholas Ty St. Germain. Michael Dean Mike Peretti. Rebecca Jo Becky Bester. David Charles Wind Sr. Michael Gerard Hansen. Archie Bashiz Robinson Jr. Paula Georgia Drain. Lonnie Campo.
Lisa Marie Henriksen. Taiji Jabri Lynn Jackson, Rafael Andres Carbala Monzillis, Donald Hurt, Vaughn James Yates, Robert Lee Blaisdell, Tiffany Michonne Norris, Jason Clint Culbertson, Fitzgerald Lamar Smith, Latrice Williams,
Dallas Lynn Johnson, Edward Allen Ed Thomas, Jerron Smith, Anna Marie Washington, Daryl David Cotton, Nicholas Patrick Nick Falco, Nancy Ann Walstead Dumoulin, Roy Ferreria, Marlene Ann Stumpf Johnson, Kathleen Proctor Gates,
Joanne Peterson, Matthew Paul Pulowski, Judge Sally L. Turnowski, Barbara Ann Barb Russ, Joel Thomas Mitchell Bamford, MD, Rabbi Simeon Sim Glacier, Hope Francis Kennedy, Cully Peterson, Wanda K. Sayers, Brenda Elizabeth Libby McDougall,
Carol Ann Kelly, Fa Ray Mason, Betty McKenzie, Rosemary Rieger Rumsey, Richard Amin Amos, Jerry Marie Beauvais, Joseph Frederick Joe Palin, Diane Marie Steinhagen, Virginia Mary Gina Webb, CSJ, Daniel Moore,
Katie Maya Lozano, Mary Hakey Kalinowski, Nell Ray Hillsley, Linda Rose Philippi Hornsnell,
During this time of community remembrance, we would invite you, if you have a brief story to share about someone who passed away and we remembered this year, you can come forward to either this microphone or the one that's over there on that side. We just ask that you keep your remarks as brief as possible, and please focus, if you can, on people who passed away this year who we remembered. I'd like to start by remembering a couple people that I had the privilege to know. The first is Donald Hurt. 12 years ago, I got an application from Donald Hurt. He wanted to live at Higher Ground in Minneapolis. We were just opening. I looked at Donald Hurt's background check and I said, I don't want to house Donald Hurt. And Sarah Stackley said, you have to, we have to. And we did. And Donald Hurt turned out to be the most beautiful human being you would imagine. He was the kindest, most wonderful guy. His background did not define who he was. He lived successfully at Higher Ground from the day that he moved in to the day that he died. And Donald was a great guy, just so full of joy. I'd like to remember Scott Cole. 3 things you need to know about Scott. He loved the farmer's market more than anyone who has ever lived. And when he found out that he could spend his food stamps at the farmer's market, his brain exploded. Every time I saw Scott at work, he wanted to tell me about the beautiful produce that he got, share it with me. He also kept his room neater than anyone I have ever known. When I first met Scott, he showed me his room and it had wall-to-wall carpet. And I thought, how did you get carpet? He said, I bought carpet and I laid carpet in my room. I said, wow. 2 people who passed away this year who were just icons, really, of the St. Paul homeless community, Dave Powell and Rock Kruger. 2 of the grouchiest people that I've ever met, but really wonderful, wonderful people. Rock and Dave probably were each homeless for at least 25 years before they moved into higher ground. Both of them lived there until they passed away. Two really great guys. I have to also mention Rosemary Rieger Rumsey, who led the Listening House in St. Paul for over 20 years, was an amazing human being. She was the executive director, but she had and made time for people who came to Listening House. She would sit and have a conversation with people as long as they needed to talk. Rosie was always there to listen. She put the listening in Listening House to me. Richard Amos, a delightful human being, worked for St. Stephen's for a long time. Every time I would run into Richard, I'd say, "Richard, it's great to see you." And he would say, "It's great to be seen." And Richard really brought that to work. He was all about visibility for people who otherwise would have been invisible, for the formerly incarcerated, for people experiencing homelessness. Richard lived that every day of his life, really bringing people into the light. And the last person I want to remember is Linda Philippi Hornsnell, who I had the privilege to work with at Catholic Charities. Linda was a beautiful person, and she was so full of empathy. And it broke my heart when I found out a few days ago that she had passed away. So, thank you.
Oh, geez, I usually don't get up here, but I would be amiss not to tell a story about Stephen James Fullerton. So, I met Stephen when I lived in St. Paul. So, Shandon, you probably remember him. Anyways, I don't know if he followed me to Duluth or I followed him, but he ended up there, and he had a camp out west, and you know, I don't know, we'd go looking for him, and I had to get down on the ground and crawl into his camp. And he's like, "How'd you get in here?" You know, and, everyone in Duluth loved him. He ended up moving into San Marcos. But I remember he always told the story about how I crawled in his camp. He would get down on his hands and knees and show people how I got into his camp. And he lived at San Marcos for almost 16 years. Every day he went to visit Star of the Sea, the statue, and he would say a prayer. It's a church in Duluth. And I remember, you know, I'm not real good at nursing homes and hospital visits, but Steve was dying on, I think it was late Memorial Day weekend, and I just told myself, you have to go down there every day, even if it's for 10 minutes. So I did that, and he was so miserable, he wanted to go, he was in pain, and I said to him, I said, "Steve," I said, "when you're gone, we're gonna visit that statue every day." And he got the biggest smile on his face. And another thing about Steve, when I first moved to Duluth, I was still on the board for the Coalition for the Homeless. So I would bring him down to visit his parents. They lived over by the Sunray Shopping Center, and it was like Meet the Fockers. It was like, I mean, there were holes, but you had to be there. But anyways, I went to pick him up on Sunday night, and he had cooked me this dinner. So I had to sit down and have roast beef with him and the family. So, I mean, he's near and dear to so many people's hearts in Duluth, and we really miss him. And then there's so many people I could talk about, but I just want to mention Clarice. I mean, we had a lot of loss this year. We all did. We lost a lot of people in Duluth, a lot of very young people. So I could go on and on all night. But Clarice Fiscari, her daughter Larissa, and the stepdad to Larissa, who dated Clarice, all died this year, leaving, you know, basically an orphan sibling. And it was just really hard to see them all go at once. One was a suicide, and I don't even know how the others went, in their sleep, I believe. But, and these are people like Tiffany, like these go way back to the beginning, so we're, like the old timers they're going now. But yet we lost so many young people, and I firmly believe in what Beth said. I'm just like in shock, traumatized by the average age of death of people experiencing homelessness here is 29 years old. This has to end. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, my name is Manny. I am the secretary for the housing, the Youth Homeless Act, for the link, actually. So the first thing I would like to give is my condolences to everybody and anybody who's lost anybody or just anything in general recently, because death it's around right now. This is its season. I knew two people that you guys listed. I knew Tay. I only met Tay once, but I would like to say that the conversation that I had with Tay is a conversation that I hold on to for life, because I'm a very reflective person. So when you have conversations with people, when you talk to people, when you hear people talk, you're learning something every single time. You just exchange information all day. But the conversation I had with Tay was one thing that we had in common was being a part of the LGBT community, and just seeing how people viewed us as people, and the looks and the stares and how we got through that. And we had conversations about our personal lives, and it was just a very connecting conversation. And I will say that with that, from her, or him, I'm sorry, I learned a lot, and I appreciate just that sense of knowledge. As well as Ventrez Lamont Johnson. I've known Ventrez since I was 16 years old. We went to school together, and we both love NBA YoungBoy. I know, there's a lot of haters, but we knew every song, word for word. I cut his hair recently this year. He was sitting there in his AirPods. He was just going like this. And I was like, "What you listening to?" He said, "Man, don't ask me what I'm listening to. You know what I'm listening to." I'm like, all right. I have a tattoo artist who's a close friend of mine, and he called me one day, and he was like, "I have this super cool tattoo idea for you, for your friend." And he pulled up this green ink, which I've never really seen a lot. And it's just, I don't know. Moral of my story is, I don't know, I kind of ramble a lot. You can ask Beth about it. But moral of the story is death is around, and it's people we know, people we don't know, and it's people that we've known for years, and it's people that we could have known for a minute, a year or two ago, that we've known for a long time, or people that you just saw at the gas station. You had a good conversation with, the next thing you know, you see them on the news, and you're like, "That's crazy. I had such a good conversation with that dude last night." And it's just, you gotta appreciate life. You have to appreciate those that are around you. You have to call your family members and call whoever you disagreed with, apologize and talk to them, and understand that when people say life is too short, it's too short. You absolutely never know. You could be gone the next minute of the day. And it's unfair, but it's life, and this is what we have to deal with. And it's best to reach out to people who are also grieving and make sure that they're grieving the right way, because there goes suicides and there goes other things that people take out in different ways, and it's very important that you keep together, just all as one. So I wish peace and prosperity amongst you all. Thank you.
I want to say that Rosemary Rumsey is one of the reasons why I am in the field that I am and have been for the last 20 years. She taught me that to love our neighbor is manual labor. You should be exhausted every day because you worked so hard to love everyone you could. And I'm here today for a gentleman whose name is not here. He passed away today. And I had known him at Listening House 20 years ago and greeted him and shared my lunch with him at Snelling and University for many, many years, where he would often flash his sign. And randomly, I ran into someone who had heard that I worked in the field of homelessness, and he said, my cousin, Ronnie, is homeless. Do you ever see him? Do you know him? And I said, yeah. And he said, I would love to see him inside someday. And so I hunted down some outreach workers that I knew of him, and we found an opening in housing not too far from his office, I would say. And he moved in not too long ago, and the sadness and the beauty of losing him today is that he died with the dignity of a roof over his head, and among people who understood and cared for him just the way he was. So as I walked tonight, this is the reflection that I would love to share. There is no noble affliction that ends a life. The same pain pierces the heart of those who loved them, tried to love them, stayed near to them, or walked away. It matters not the reason the heart stopped beating, if they were pleasant or intolerable to their very last breath. The relevance of choices made or not made disappear in the morning, in the new and unfamiliar silence. What matters is that when one love dimmed, they found the light of love in others. The peace that can be found is not in a life well lived because subjectivity veils judgment. Instead, the peace is found in a life that was loved, and therein lies the power of our daily choice to love our neighbor.
Good evening. My name is Mark. I'm here because of hope, and I think that's pretty much what I call this state. A young lady named Tanya recently passed away last month, and she was a good friend of mine. She always talked about the agates, the rocks we collected and cleaned them off, and she taught me something, how important it is to know your neighbors. And it's been like a real merry-go-round here for me. I've never seen so many homeless, happy people. And I found out why. I was sitting here listening. I said, that could be me up there. I suffer from homelessness. And then the man said, Mark Anthony. I said, that's my name. But it was a different last name. I said, amen. But it wasn't until I got to this place until my life changed. We are talking about these people who had challenges, but I believe their experience was good because of this place. It's because of you all faces. I run into a lot of people here that I help do service work with. I'm looking at them. They're looking at me. I worked for Youth Link and Mad Dads and a number of different shelters. And I've been here for 3 years, and I've never seen so many collective people work together for the good. And that's hope. And that's you all. And I appreciate you. And, it's going to be all right. Trust me. I got my own place now. It's all right.
Good evening. My name's Michael Bean. I'm recently from the streets of Duluth myself. About 7 weeks ago, me and my forever Jen Chatterson, we got off the streets. But what brought us here was just last summer we started a protest in the Hanging Circle because many of my friends were telling me they were being kicked out indefinitely from a homeless shelter, and we begged to question what warrants an indefinite kick out from a homeless shelter. And we came up with only two answers: proven drug dealing and acts of violence. And so that's really the start of the journey for Jen and I. We decided to get out because we've been neck deep in the river for so long with our friends that we cannot throw them a lifeline unless we're standing on the shore. You know, Deb, we love you. You're our unsung hero, and we know that you can't do it forever, you know? So, our time now to come into the cities here and to be here at this vigil, it's just not lost on me, You'll see me along this path because there's a fire that is burning inside my soul. I mean, to be treated less than when the people that we're speaking of are some of the most hardworking, determined, capable people in our society, and they're looked down on like they're lazy. And I tell you this, being homeless is 2 full-time jobs. If we could cut it down to 1, they could get themselves out. But having 2, it's nearly impossible. If it wasn't for Minnesota and the resources are all grouped together at the end of a treatment center, Jen and I wouldn't be here together. And that's God and God alone in Minnesota. And that's really why we came to the cities, because we came to find those resources at the end of a treatment center. And I think that it doesn't always have to be. I mean, drug use is pretty synonymous with homelessness, but it doesn't always have to be at the end of a treatment center to get some of these resources. So, I don't know, I thank you all for being here tonight. My love to Duluth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Casey. So I work with a lot of people that have died. So probably like 20, 25 people that have died on this list that we like work with, healthcare for the homeless. But one person, and I want to just shout out to all those people who have died of like gun violence, overdose, medical problems, all these things. So I think like we just have to talk about it because it's all these things. But one person that comes to mind is Brookie. Brookie Flying Hawk. The first time I ever heard of Brookie, I was working at St. Stephen's. She called the line and she was like, "I'm naked on 10th." And I was like, all right. And I'm like, I was the downtown like DID outreach worker, so I was like, okay, I'll come on downtown. So I came downtown, and so every single day after that, she'd call the line and be like, "I'm naked," and then that was that. So every day I'd go downtown and make sure she had clothes, like, you know. But slowly, like, we got to be friends and all this kind of stuff. But then one day, I'd still had been working downtown, and the business bureau or whatever, the DID people had called me, and they're like, "You need to come downtown, because, like, we got this lady, she's, like, in, like, the city center, and she has, like, 6, like different, like, electric wheelchairs that don't work." And I was like, okay. So I get down there, and I'm like, I brought like 2 other people, and then rest in peace, one of my coworkers who was with me at the time, who also was on this list. We get down there, and I'm like, I need like 4 people to come with me. And so we got down there, and I was like, God damn it. And she was like, hey! And I was like, okay, girl, like, let's go. So then I'm like, all right, and none of them worked, and she was yelling at me. She was like, you didn't even bring a charger? And I was like, no, I didn't know I had to have one, and I didn't know. And so then I was like standing there, and we're just like, okay. And so I'm like pushing one of the wheelchairs that she was in, and she's like, and then we have like other people pushing the other wheelchairs, and we're like we had to like go all the way down Nicollet. So I'm like going down Nicollet, like pushing her down Nicollet, and then all of a sudden, she turns the wheelchair on and just zooms away, and she's like, bye, bitches! And I was like, God damn. So then I was like, I don't know what to do with all these wheelchairs. So then I ended up being like, okay, and they're all electric, so you can't really like do anything with electric wheelchairs. So then you're like, okay. So that was fucking Brookie Fly Cloud, and I said fucking because that's what she would say. So she said, Brookie fucking Flying Cloud. Anyways.
So my name is Jonda. I am a certified peer recovery specialist. My sister is Shelly over here. We brought Tony. My sister worked with him this is hard for me because he has lost him about a month ago. My sister worked with him at the grocery store last winter, and it got really cold, and he had nowhere to go. So we let him come into our home. He stayed there for several months. The story I want to give was on Valentine's Day still this year. He cooked for us, and he was intoxicated because he was fighting addiction, and he lost the steak in the au jus sauce. And so for a good 45 minutes, we couldn't find the steak, and we were looking everywhere for it. And finally, after it was all over with, because I shared my steak with my sister, when we were done, we found it in the au jus sauce. And so that was just Tony. We just want to say like that we're just grateful that we had a time with him. We actually were trying to get him back into our home when he passed away. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. I would like to bring to light a person that was an inspiration in my life part with street outreach. Her name is Fawn Ray Mason. She did the work. During COVID, we was given a choice to go out or not to go out. And she had children, and she said, I'm with this team, I'm rolling. And I miss her. And shout out to the outreach workers, you know, because her heart was all the way in it. And that Friday, she passed that Saturday, I talked to her, and she still was laser focused on helping people out on the streets, even though she was on the streets. So please, for her, say her name, Fawn Ray Mason.
I'm Melissa. I'm one of the pastors over at Central Lutheran, and there's 2 folks this year. First one for us, for sure, is Robin Martin. Robin had the nastiest, raunchiest jokes you have ever heard in your entire life. She'd always start with, "Hey, Pastor Melissa, you want to hear a joke?" And I'd say, "Robin, is this a joke you want to tell in the sanctuary? Am I going to get in trouble if I hear this joke?" "Oh, it's not that bad." And then she would tell me something that was incredibly vile. And she had the best sense of humor. They were always funny. They were always funny. Robin was a beautiful artist. You gave her a bucket of chalk, and she would draw you 1,000,000 bunnies humping. On the patio outside of church during Sunday morning. And I would have some of the Sunday morning older folks come and say, "Oh, what's she drawing?" And I'm like, "Wildlife." It's just fine. And then afterwards, she'd come in for lunch and she'd say, "Oh, Pastor Melissa, did you see my drawing?" I said, "Yes." I said, Robin got housed last year right around Christmas, and it was absolutely amazing. It was absolutely amazing that she was inside, and she loved it so much. And she would come every day to the free store, and she'd find something new to take home to her place, something just like a trinket, a bauble, something shiny, and another pair of sunglasses. I gave that woman more pairs of sunglasses than anyone I'd ever met in my entire life, because she had an eye thing. And we're like, "We got you. We can get you some sunglasses." I actually had a stash in my office of sunglasses just for when Robin would come around. So Robin was housed, and then Robin got an infection. And Robin was at HCMC, and it was her second time in the year. She'd been in there before Christmas, and they didn't know who to call. And so it took us like a month to find out where Robin was. And by the time we got to see her, she was intubated. And we had remembered how in December she hated being intubated. And we brought her boyfriend, Michael, to be with her. And they let go of all the stuff that was keeping her under. And she saw Michael, and she tried to talk over the tube. And Michael said, "Do you want the tube out?" And Robin's like, "Yes, yes." We're like, "Sweetie, but you're not going to live very long once we do that." And she got to say yes. She got to decide what her care should be and how she was going to go. And so she got to leave this world with a lot of dignity and a lot of love. And Michael was there by her side, and the medical examiner found her Auntie Gwen, who loved her. And so that's where she is now, with her Auntie Gwen, and she is safe and loved, and she knows love. And Jesus is like, "When are you coming to take these jokes?" Because he doesn't know how much more he can take of her. But the other person this year was Rabbi Sim Glazer. I served with him on the Align Steering Committee, and Rabbi Sim cared so deeply for people. He cared so deeply for people that he couldn't serve anymore on that board, because oftentimes he felt like we were doing the things, but we weren't ending homelessness. And it just frustrated him so much that we couldn't have this tikkun olam, right? This beautiful community, this care for one another in the ways that he thought we needed to. But that he loved and he cared for folks right up until his death. So just thank God for Robin, and I thank God for Rabbi Sim. I forgot the one really important thing about Robin. Robin is the reason that at 5 o'clock church on Saturday night at Central, at happy hour, we have a 2-drink maximum. Robin is the reason. So if you come for happy hour, only 2 drinks.
Okay, I think this works. Again, we shouldn't have to be here. Every year we gather. I love all you, but I don't want to see your faces here. No offense. Each day in the year, the list gets longer. One thing that always gives me hope is the list of formerly housed people getting longer. To first off start, before I go into that, want to just remember Tom Lewis. Tom Lewis was an amazing advocate for the harm reduction community. I remember before he was homeless, going down to the Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition, and just his passion for the work, for the community, and destigmatizing drug use, homelessness, mental illness, all that jazz. I remember the last time I saw Tom, it was an April morning. I think it was a Wednesday. Saw him at the Opportunity Center, and I remember it being raining. And just, for some reason, I remember Belgian waffles. I remember seeing the Facebook notification within the harm reduction community that Tom had died and passed. And he had such a sweet, tender, and kind heart. If there's anything you could say about Tom, is that dude was so fucking kind. So kind. And I know so many of us here who knew Tom just are going to miss him. So if we say his name for Tom. Other person, Dono Kushner. I remember the first day he showed up on campus. I was smoking a cigarette in the back before the shift up. Here comes Dono in a wheelchair wearing this blaze orange, like noticeable camo jacket with a Lynyrd Skynyrd hat that may or may not have had a Confederate flag on it. And I was like, okay, let's find you another hat to wear in this space. Probably not the best idea to be rolling in with that. But he was a sweet man. He had a lot of health conditions, and you know, he was a very person that had a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges, physically and mentally. He did like to drink, though, once in a while, so he got that. I hadn't seen Dono since I left the agency that I was at, and like many years, I'm startled every time that I look at this list and hear the names and see how many people I actually didn't know passed. So, to every one of you, thank you, and I love you.
Hey y'all, so I'm a street outreach worker in St. Paul. I just want to mention a couple of people in St. Paul that I worked with that didn't make it on this list tonight. Don, who was a huge pillar of St. Paul and a huge community member. She helped out so many other homeless people in St. Paul. My client, a couple of my folks I worked with, Lee Mann and Tracy Sanders. I met Lee Mann my very first day on the job 4 years ago, and he had been outside about 30 years and made it into housing like 2.5 years ago. This year he got back outside and then was able to peacefully die in his house. So that's kind of what I wanted to mention. So.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Stillday, and I'm Savannah Williams' little sister. And she was murdered November 29th of a hate crime. She was shot in the head. I just wanted to come up here because I made a promise to her that I always will get up and speak about her if I ever get the chance. And I just want to let you guys know, even though she was homeless, she always gave me her last. She never took from me. I remember one day she was staying with me, and she was leaving out. And I told her, can you stay in the house? I'll help you. I'll help you get what you need. And I was kind of crying and upset, like, why are you leaving me? Why are you going out to the streets? And she said, what? You want me to live your life? And I have a house, cars, and a family. And she told me, she said, what, live your life? You do everything you're supposed to do when you're still miserable. I would choose my street life over your life any day. And I just want you guys to know she was just really, she always gave to me, she never took. She loved my kids. And yeah. Thank you guys for being here for everybody.
Hi, so a lot of people on the list this year. It's hard. I want to start by shouting out to some of my St. Stephen's advocates and volunteers. Richard Amos pretty much taught me, was my first introduction to how to do housing. I used to carry around a big old set of keys, because apparently he could get into everybody's house. I did not follow that particular plan. Joe Palin, Mary Klonowski, also, and this is hard, I want to talk about a couple parents who lost people. Robin lost Richard, William lost his son Junior, kind of unspeakable pain and heartbreak for them, and just want to recognize them and their sorrow. 4 of my really OG housing people also passed away this year. Ed Thomas was a real smooth, steady, kind guy. Lori Thompson, super gentle, always focused on her people, her family. Paula Drain. Paula was known, among other things, for her great laugh and her hundreds and hundreds of stuffed animals that she had on her couch. And I'll finish with a funny one. So Cynthia Hare, one of my favorite humans in the whole world. We worked together for a really long time. She would often tell me things like she'd have suggestions, pills I could take for my memory, for my skin. She figured out how to text at some point, and she started texting me, and she'd end it with, love you. And I'm like, okay, so Cynthia, I can't really do the love you thing. So yeah, we got to come up with something else. So she said, sure, fine. You found me at my weakest moment. You've helped me get housing. And ever since then, she'd just say, okay, bye, Mary, hate ya. So here's to Cynthia.
I'm going to go really quick. I'm going to start with a man who lived a short life, CB, but he took the longest time picking out which baby animal sticker he wanted. My friend Brookie Flying Hawk, who made it to many different camps in the summers when they were in the, what do you call it, like in the parks? And she would come up and ask for favors. And when I wasn't able, like if I didn't have it on me, she'd be like, I'm gonna go find a volunteer. So she became Brookie, I'm gonna go find a volunteer Flying Hawk for a while. Dustin Thunder, who was the first person to find a bottle in my vehicle that someone else had stashed and had a very good day. Timajay Short, his twin brother Dimajay, convinced him like ongoing for months that the only reason that people could get health care, I work as an outreach nurse, was if they had a spider bite, and he would make up spider bites as a result of that. That wasn't his cause of death, unfortunately. Matt Morrison, whose family came down when he was hooked up on all the tubes and like held it down. We're so impressed with how many of his exes came. They were like, he's still got game even when he's on the ventilator. He was called Loverboy Handsome by his sisters. Matt Freeman should have been hired for Hennepin County as like a disease investigator, because he knew everybody's backstory and who'd been with who. And he was my lookout the most times when I was giving Bicillin in a porta potty. Tanya Jack, one of the most vibrant people, very well photographed by the Star Tribune. Another person who spent a lot of time in the Star Tribune, quoted as someone experiencing homelessness, Dan Robertson. He is someone who continued to surprise me that he was not experiencing homelessness, but he could make a home anywhere. Once I found him like in a snowstorm in a Rubbermaid container, and he like heard my voice and he goes, "Hey, Sarah Jane, you got a bus token?" He also had like a, from the Sheridan, he liberated one of their like, what do you call them? Like the thing, where like you roll all the luggage in and out, and he lived in that for one summer on the Greenway, but he was also housed at Kimball Court. I would love to know who cleaned out his apartment because I would like to know how much produce and treasure there is there.
All right, so from pit bulls to chihuahuas, I want to talk a little bit about Dallas Johnson and Jean Torres, who is not in the program because she recently passed. Jean was a regular at the North Minneapolis Pet Resource Center. She would pick up food for her loving chihuahuas that she lived in her van with for a short amount of time. And I think the last thing she asked me for was like a bunch of kennels so she could get more chihuahuas. And then Dallas Johnson. I had the privilege of being the shelter manager at Matrix, the only pet-friendly shelter across the state. And Dallas was a huge pain in my butt. There was always a pit bull puppy that he would find and bring to the shelter. And I will say that we never had any issues with pets. So if you want to be a pet-friendly shelter, let's chat and make it happen because we need more of it. So Dallas passed away housed. Ironically, he found his way back to me and was a regular at the Pet Resource Center. And so it was one of those moments where we looked at each other and I'm like, do I say that I know you or are you gonna say that you know me? And he's like, hey, Shannon, I'm housed and I have dogs. Just being here on behalf of his family, Belinda, hopefully if you're watching, just to know that people who are experiencing homelessness have pets, and oftentimes, the people and the pets pass away. So just a moment to think about them too.
Yeah, I'll just do this. My name is Dan, and two people I want to remember tonight. When I first started at the job I work at now, People Incorporated, I was shadowing a former coworker, and she brought me to an apartment building to meet a client of ours named Tiffany Norris, and she kind of prefaced Tiffany to me by saying, yeah, Tiffany usually doesn't trust anybody, and she's almost always drunk and angry. I was like, good, a challenge. So I don't know how it happened, but when we met, it was strangely like an immediate connection we had. She trusted me surprisingly fast, and I'd say most of the time I worked with her, she was still in a really bad state of mind and really dealing with stress and anxiety and schizophrenia and all stuff. But when Coordinated Entry worked its magic, we were able to get an apartment of her own finally, and the turn in her was amazing. She was smiling every time I visited, and even when I buzzed on the apartment, before I even got to her apartment, she would be running down the hallway, "Dan, my man!" And I was like, "Shh, dude, seriously, you just moved in here. Don't make enemies right away," kind of thing. Anyway, but she passed away due to a heart failure, I believe, and I'm just glad that she had 4 months in an apartment that she really loved and felt really excited about. And also for a gentleman named Chris Ekman. I didn't know him super well because he was kind of hard to connect with, but a former coworker would tell me once that Chris had so much potential. He was a really smart guy, but unfortunately he just always chose out drug and alcohol over that, which is sad. But one memory I will always have of him is that he loved his wife, but he really loved his cat.
John is looking at me because this program is running so long, and I know that you guys are hungry for a turkey dinner that's waiting downstairs, and it's going to be great, but I have to tell a couple of stories. Because there are so many folks on this list that have just been such fixtures in my life over these last years. Folks that I feel like I've known ever since I got into this work, like Ed Thomas, Ray DeLeon, Lori Thompson, to folks that I've known for like one fierce minute, like Ishi Warsame or Kate Frazier. I wasn't going to tell a Brookie story, but I have to real quick share this story about Brookie spent a little time with us at Simpson, and there was one glorious, terrifying afternoon in which we thought she had won $25,000 $1,000 off of a scratch-off ticket. And she was making so many promises to everybody else in the shelter about all the things that she was going to buy them. And then our coworker PJ took her down to the corner store where they gently explained to her why it wasn't a winner. But she still came, even though she didn't win any money, she still came back with an armful of chips and pop to hand out to everyone. Mike Peretti is somebody that I got to know over so many phases of his life, but he was a really smart, really intelligent guy. He's fluent in Italian. He had a temper. There was a time where I remember him needing to get a tooth pulled because he had tooth pain, and he went to the VA saying, "Can you get me into?" And they said, "Well, we're not taking walk-ins today, only absolute emergencies." And so he went home, pulled out his tooth with the pliers, went back to the VA, slammed the tooth on the counter, and said, "Now it's an emergency." Rafael Carballo, we're remembering, he was the last survivor of a stabbing triangle. We've already remembered the other two corners in previous. But Rafael and two other guys from El Salvador, Barajas and Ricardo Escobar, had each stabbed each other. I think Rafael had stabbed Ricardo first, and then Ricardo had stabbed Barajas, and then Barajas had found Rafael in the park and stabbed Rafael. And I remember visiting him in the hospital, and he was like, "Hey, bro, I can't even complain. Like, I deserved the circle's complete." But no, Rafael was an amazing, amazing dude. He was a heavy drinker for many years, and then he had a doctor who, told him he was getting cirrhosis, and that he wasn't going to live much longer unless he stopped drinking. And I remember having this conversation with him where the first week that he was probably sober in years and years, and him saying that he just realized that he wanted his daughter in his life, and he wanted to stop drinking. And never have I seen a dude where the first decade that I knew him, I never saw him sober. The last decade that I knew him, I never saw him touch a drop. And he did reconcile with his daughter Andrea, and he was an amazing guy. Tierney Young, it's hard to believe that Tierney does not exist in this world anymore because she was a force of nature. We had put her out of Simpson because she had snuck up behind one of our overnight staff and clocked him in the back of the head with a metal water bottle, those things are really heavy, like a metal Nalgene if you fill it up with water. So we had put her out, and then she kept coming back saying, "Well, when are you going to let me back? When are you going to let me back?" And we finally relented and let her back, and she did okay for a little bit, and then there was one night where she just flipped out, and there was another lady who was in our TV lounge who had fallen asleep on the couch, and this lady, Luann, came and told us later, she said, "Tierney came and woke me up," and she just shook me, and she said, "Wake up, honey, you probably want to leave this room because the cops are about to come." And the lady was like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And she got up and walked out of the room, and then Tierney proceeded to smash every single thing in that room. She smashed our big screen TV, a giant lighted mirror that we had, all the computers, everything, and then she just sat down on the couch and just smoked a cigarette until the police came. And the very last person that I need to talk, there's so many people on this list that I need to talk about, Miguel Rivera, so many people on this list, Libby McDougall, but is Ramon Mejia, Ramon, okay, sorry. Ramon is just a beautiful man, an avid reader, just a person of endless curiosity, and just an amazing singer. He was, again, really deep into his alcoholism. He would always, we'd find him and he'd be like on death's door all the time. How many times we felt like Ramon was just hanging on by a thread, and he'd be like, "No, I'm all right, mija, I'm all right," But there were so many times where you felt like this guy is barely alive, and then music would play, and he'd pop up and he would start singing. And there's this one night that I remember where somebody was playing music, and he gave this impromptu concert for everybody at the old Simpson. We had a big staircase like you got in the corner back there, and he sang this Javier Solis song, deep from his chest, and went all up the banister and leaning over the banister. And that's just it's a moment that I'm going to carry with me. I'm going to play that song and think of Ramon for the rest of my life. Thanks. Steve, where you at? Oh.
Thank you, everyone. As I was, sentiment that I had was gratitude to be a part of this community that cares enough about one another and about human life to gather this evening in remembrance. Thank you for stories of au jus and broken electric wheelchairs and bunny chalk drawings, because I was really weighted down by preparing for this evening. 266 names on top of 260 last year, on top of just the weight of it all, and telling these stories, having a little bit of levity is exactly what my soul needed this evening. So thank you for all of that. A special thank you to everyone who makes this event possible, the staff, volunteers, community organizations, and our hosts here at Plymouth Congregational. Thank you so much for making this possible. Again, thanks to all of you for gathering in contemplation of the circumstances that our brothers and sisters without stable housing are faced with every single day. Be kind to one another. For those who are able to join us following this service, as Robert mentioned, we are thrilled to be having our friends from Minnetonka United Methodist Church are here with a traditional turkey dinner once again. And when you leave this room, head into Guild Hall. You'll hear a piano, and you'll be guided downstairs to the community meal. And that's all I've got to say, except for please remain seated for our closing music. We are very pleased to welcome the White Elk Singers of the Oglala and Hunkpapa Standing Rock Lakotas.